Hello and good morning, everyone. Welcome to What's Up Wednesday, Get Inspired, Reference Centers. My name is George Bergstrom, and I am the Southwest Regional Coordinator from the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I'll be presenting today and question moderating. I'd like to start off the webinar with a few announcements. To register for other webinars or other trainings available from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. The session is 1 hour, so you'll get 1 TLU for today. If you are watching the archived recording of this webinar, the instructions on how to obtain your TLU are available in the video description on YouTube. Or you can also find the instructions on the Indiana State Library's continuing education website under the TLU policies. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. And just as a reminder, go ahead and use that chat if you have questions as we go along. And I'll try my best to keep an eye on that. All right, so today, what we're going to talk about, I'm going to do an overview of the 7 reference centers that are in the Inspire suite of tools. We'll cover a few resources that are available for help with searching through databases in general. We'll probably spend the bulk of our time on sample searches and sort of exploring those reference centers. And at the end, we'll have a time for questions. So, which reference centers do we have access to? The first, Biography Reference Center, a collection of full-text biographies, unique narratives. It includes coverage of several of the most popular and highly researched biographies and genres, including those contained within Biography Today and Biography, both dating back to the first issues. Within the History Reference Center, it's designed primarily for secondary school and public libraries, junior and community colleges, and some early or undergraduate research. And this database features full text of thousands of primary sources and informational texts. The Legal Information Reference Center offers everyday users the necessary tools and details how-to instructions on covering a wide range of legal issues. A majority of full-text legal reference books provided through NOLO, the nation's oldest and most respected provider. In the Literary Reference Center Plus, we'll find full-text database providing information on thousands of authors and their works across literary disciplines and timeframes. Gives students, teachers, and librarians a complete foundation of literary reference works. Point of View Reference Center contains resources that present multiple sides of an issue. Rich content that can help students assess, develop persuasive arguments and essays, and better understand controversial issues. Within the Science Reference Center, we'll have easy access to a wealth of full-text, science-oriented content designed to meet student research needs, containing full text of hundreds of science encyclopedias, reference books, and periodicals. And finally, in the Small Business Reference Center, we'll find exclusive full text for many top consumer small business reference books, as well as the necessary tools and instructions to address a wide range of small business topics. In addition, there are some videos, a helpful advice section, and information on how to create business plans. All right, so in general, all of these are EBSCO databases. So if you have patrons who would need help with just basic searching, I'd like to just do a quick reminder that we have a lot of resources on the continuing education site. There are lots of Inspire-related webinars that contain the basics of searching. And also as a reminder that EBSCOhost does have tutorials for both basics of searching as well as many of these databases. And the URL is there. And then, of course, YouTube is a great source. So, does anyone have one of those 7 that they'd like us to start in? Or should I just go from the top? Oh, history got the first vote. All right. So when we open up History Reference Center, we get a slightly different interface than some of the more basic article databases within EBSCO products. They've set this one up, I think, to be a little bit more browsable. We do obviously have our main search box that operates nearly identically to Academic Search Complete or any of the other article heavy databases. But they encourage us to browse, and they give us a whole bunch of helpful information on the right. So that's kind of one of the first things I want to point out. And then they also try to give us popular sources within this database. So if we were to pick one of these sort of browsable topics, we will usually get 2 or 3 opportunities to narrow. So we started in events and movements. We could then pick the Industrial Revolution. And then we could pick further down based on things within that topic. And eventually, after those 2 or 3 choices, we're usually going to be presented with some search results. And once we get to this level, hopefully it starts to look very much like any other list of results within an EBSCO database. So I'll just quickly point out, we can obviously limit by date, we can limit by source type, all the sort of standard things you would expect. And then obviously we can save them to a folder if we're logged in, open up the full text of the article, etc. So one of the nice things about this reference center, obviously, I think, is that sort of browsability. But then added on top of that, of course, is your standard power of EBSCO searching. So I think this one works out really well. Pretty cool combination. Okay, so I'm going to jump back to the slides. Are there any questions about the History Reference Center before I go on? Do we want to actually search for something that maybe one of your patrons has been looking for, or focus on any one of those tools? Are there teacher aids on there? Good question. So if we go back, we can, since I'm not seeing a cool, oops, helps if so it looks like we do have, this just looks like a keyword search. Okay, I'm going to make a note of that one. No, EBSCO has talked about those. Curriculum standards, yes. We could search for that as well. Curriculum development, curriculum and instruction. So it looks like they are going to have, depending on exactly what you're looking for, some material based on some of those things and then tie it to the history. So, although that was 1978. Wow. On the homepage. Oh, yeah, there it is. Cool. United States and international. That's pretty broad. Oh, there we go. Awesome. Look at that. It looked really cool until I got down to this based on 2015. So hopefully EBSCO updates that. But that is a really cool feature. Any other questions of something somebody saw? I love exploring these. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the home page here. And I'll leave this one open in case we get questions as we move along. Okay. So is there another reference center somebody wants to try? Legal, okay. We had two, so legal. Now I believe there might be an entire webinar on this one, so I'll spend a little bit of time in it today, and then I'll double check that. So I know one of the last times I talked about this one, we focused heavily on the legal forms by state. That's where you should be able to drill down to Indiana and get, as best as EBSCO can provide at least, legal forms that are specifically tied to Indiana. But I also want to kind of point out that we do have the very similar browsable interface as we saw in History Reference Center. So we can also do a little bit broader searching depending on patron needs or your own needs, either by broad legal topics or by specific forms over here on the right. So we could go divorce, name change. And we're getting a quick legal book from 2020. That one doesn't specifically give it to the state though. So yeah, I think we have to go the other route if we want to get it by Indiana. Search. There was a way to actually pick Indiana before we got into searching. Here we go. There we go. And then we get taken out to legal form tools specific to Indiana. So let's see, Jen, I think said legal. Is there anything else within the legal forms reference center you'd like to see? All right, while I wait on that, I'm going to go back to the page and kind of show off again the browsability. So maybe I'm interested in legal forms surrounding maybe a business, starting a business and starting and running. And there we go. So now we've got 5-6 page sections on all kinds of different legal forms around starting a business. Okay, so we've had people ask for history and legal. What's up next? Remember, we've got biography, literary, points of view. It's not literary? Okay. So in literary, sort of keeping with the theme, they definitely, next science, got it. They definitely try to keep it browsable. In this case, we start off with featured collections. So collections around specific literary works, usually, or specific authors. I think I saw the first one was an author. We also then have sort of a daily featured work, a featured author, that same reference shelf. So it looks like we do have curriculum standards here as well as literary glossary and an encyclopedia. And then we can browse by, classics, by authors, by children's or young adult, or we could do a traditional search. So let's say maybe young adult literature. Full text classics, yeah, I'll do that after we get through this. And it looks like on this one, we didn't have as many steps to choose from, so we're just sort of taken directly to results at that point. And this is where, again, we fall back on our general database filtering and sort of analysis. So we could look at things in the past 4 years, we could pick source, etc. And it looks like not only do we have some of these in PDF, but we can download EPUB. So if you have patrons who want to put it on their own readers, at least for some of these, that's an option, which is awesome. Okay, and then someone wanted to look at full text classics. Excuse me. Okay. Very straightforward, A to Z, it looks like. We could browse if we have a title. We could go by genre. Full ebooks, yes, I believe they are. Oh, wait, this one's just an analysis. So we have the EPUB on some of them, but not on all of them. Let's go. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Instead of genre, let's go title. Oh, no, this is just the full text of an analysis of the piece. Here we go. We do have an ebooks down here at the bottom, though. Translation for the text. Depends on where it's written, I think. I'm not seeing a translation on this one. I think in some EBSCO databases, though, depending on the source of the original source of the material, you can get a translation. But to go back to the full text of the works, it looks like there is an ebooks browsing section here. So for some classics, they do have, as we saw in the search results earlier, they do have the full text. Which is pretty cool. All right, you're welcome. Okay, any other questions about Literary Reference Center? Literary criticisms. Yeah, I believe if you found a title, so here we are, and there are 5 articles and or discussions of it. You could probably also just do a full text search, criticism, and then the name of the title that you're looking for. All right, well, we can come back to this one if there are questions later, but I think someone requested science. Any plans to have Inspire include Gale Literary? Well, that would be a decision the next time it goes out for a bid, which I believe is next summer. There'll be a committee formed to put together the RFP, and then the vendors just have to bid on it. And you know how that goes, I suppose. Science Reference Center. So again, built for browsability. Looks like curriculum standards are here, and it looks like on this one we include worksheets, which is cool. We can take a look at that in a minute if someone wants. So I can browse through areas of science. I could browse by scientist. Let's go ahead and try space. Maybe we're interested in Mars. And again, after those 2 or 3 clicks, we get down to a pretty standard result list from any database. We can then filter that list with the stuff on the right or the left. If we go by worksheets, looks like most of these are coming from books. eTutor World, I have not heard of that publisher, but we can take a look at that. And then I guess you're just based on your subject. So calculus, chemistry, physics. And then I've got worksheets. 33 pages. That's fairly respectable, I suppose. Okay. Science experiments, sure. Ranger Rick. Looks like these are coming out of maybe magazines, Science Scope. I don't know if they're going to have Lexile or other. Let's see what we get as we dig deep. Grade 2 is what this source says. So it looks like, unfortunately, I don't see a way to, oh, here we go, filter by. I mean, Lexile is not a perfect way to filter, but it looks like you could filter that way to at least get a little bit closer. Yeah, sure. And lesson plans, research guides. Filter by Indianapolis. You mean the experiments or just science in general? Okay, sure. So oops. So if I just throw it in as a keyword, I get a pretty hefty results list, almost 400 things based in their science sources. Ooh, a project on Indy 500 statistics. Interesting. 15 ways to fight. Yeah, 500 change the way you drive. Battle against heart disease. So depending on which database you're in, you're going to get obviously a very different list of results. But now if we tried curriculum, oh, there's no way to search. There's just the drop downs. Okay. So unfortunately for the curriculum, you can't necessarily put in a keyword first. You have to filter down through their drop down menus. Okay, so we've done literary, we've done science, we've done history and legal. So I believe that leaves points of view, small business, or biography. Anybody have a preference? Biography? All right. So as we've come to expect, browsability, can a teacher add to Google Classroom? I don't know if there's a direct icon, but let's just pick Teddy here. If you got to an item level. So the full text of this particular article. You could, oh, I don't see the hyperlink one. In most of the article databases, you can create a permanent hyperlink to get back to here. So I'm not seeing that. So they may just have to save it and then import it into Google Classroom, depending on which product they're in. But if I see one, I'll definitely point out the way to create a link. Okay, so back to the homepage of biographies. Obviously, very similar to all the rest we've seen so far. There's several ways to do browsability. Featured, just a list of people by picture. Biographies by genre. So actors, business leaders, inventors, etc. And then if we pick one of those, we're just given a massive list. Not sure if that's as helpful as I would like. It would be pretty cool to have a search within, but you'll notice some of them have the little camera icon. It means there are images within whatever articles or material is in the results for that person. So if I were to pick someone at that point, I would then get some number of articles, biographical in nature. I could pick at that point. Oh, there we go, the permalink. Okay, so the permalink, at least for this one, is right here, and I could copy and paste that into Google Classroom. I'm not sure if I saw that on the last one we looked at. But here's the full text. And then if you are within one of these and there were more than one result, the read more is what takes us back to that list at that point, which is kind of cool. I do not see curriculums. No, it's biographies. That's probably why there's no standards or anything of those other cool supplemental features. So unless there are questions about biographies, all right. So points of view or small business. Small business, awesome. So we found the secret, the one that's not like the others. Unfortunately, right now, and I have not heard from the EBSCO rep whether this is in the works or not, but right now, Small Business Reference Center is the only one that doesn't have that cool browsable interface on top of it. So for good or for bad, this one is going to be very much like searching any other database. So if I was ready to look for funding, maybe I want to know how to make a business plan, I could search for that. If I was interested in learning more about a type of business, obviously, I could search for the industry or the area that I was trying to get into. And very quickly, I'm just going to get to a pretty standard results list. One of the things that's slightly different about this one over other EBSCO databases is because this is business related, they put the news feeds kind of right here on the right. So once you've done a little research on the business area you're interested in, you might want to just see what's being said about that person or industry or area in the news. So they built that right in. And again, all the same filtration options are available. See, this one builds language right in. I'm not sure why that wasn't in the others. So I could filter to trade publications. And read about the solar power industry. Find out if it's a good thing to get into or not. And then, oops. And then maybe get an example of a business plan to model mine after, if I wanted. So this one is maybe the most straightforward of all of the reference centers. And because this is a fairly standard EBSCO search result, most of the time things like translate and permalink are there. Saving and emailing results or printing it off are all there. And then saving directly to Google Drive. And then I guess once it's in Drive, I suppose you could link it to your classroom that way. So, okay. Any questions about small business? All right. Oops. So I guess the last one we haven't looked at is points of view. And like the 5, not counting small business, this one does have the browsability, which I think is great. It has the curriculum standards and some of these other cool tools over here on the right. And this one, I think, maybe goes the best into browsable, sort of click your way down. I think teacher. Yeah. If I had just hit the Google Drive at that point, if I wasn't logged into my, they're calling it now One Indiana, Indiana One. There's some sort of account now that you can create to save your, save all your stuff and connect it to your Google Drive. Yeah. So yeah, this one I think does a really good job of that browsable sort of, I'm not sure what I want to do my project on or my assignment, or I don't know what to write a paper about. This one I think might have been there first, certainly the first one I had experience with that had this interface. So while they keep the really hot items that are in the news kind of right on top here, you can get to all of the major categories, and there are a lot of them. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 by 1, 2, 3, 9, so like 36 categories if I did that right. And then within each of those subcategories, and obviously they all have more, well, not all of them, I guess evolution does, but most of them have a more button to so if I'd heard about maybe statehood for Washington, D.C. in the news, or if we were talking about it in our history class, maybe I could open this one up and I get sort of a base level introductory article to the issue, a little bit about the history of the issue with a good biography. Of course, links out to all those references. And then I get the actual pointed pieces. So this first one is on the point of DC should be a state. And then the second one is on the point of DC should not be a state. Yes, this would work pretty well in conjunction with either of those other two, yeah. And then I get what they call a critical analysis guide. So things to think about before you read the pointed articles, and maybe tips and tricks on how to sort of take notes or sort of approach the understanding of the pieces. So these are pretty cool. And then of course, talking about, you have to decide what you think. And I can, of course, print this or save it or email it to myself as a PDF. And then if you want more than just the one article on each side, I could then come over here and get more things out of magazines, newspapers, primary sources, or I could get more of those points of view pieces. So of these 9, there was one each displayed on that front page. So there's, several others that are counterpoint or point, and they're related to the issue. So it looks like some of these are on Washington, D.C. statehood. Some of them are about Puerto Rico statehood. So while these first 3 might be enough, well, first 4, I guess, the introduction, the analysis, and the one on each side of the issue. If a student or a teacher ever thought they needed more than just those kind of base issues, there's a lot more over here. If I wanted the primary sources, I now have 84 articles on DC and their representation and other related, so Hawaii and Alaska, and how it works in the constitutional system and things like that. So I really like this one, especially when a student doesn't really know what they're, I have to write a paper on X, or I have to write a paper and I don't know what to write it on at all. Sitting them down in front of this, I think, can be kind of cool. Okay. Any questions about points of view? Do they need to sign in? If their ISP is recognized as being in Indiana, they shouldn't need to. They should be able to just get right in. So definitely if they're in the library, it should work. And if they're, as long as you're not right along the border, and even if you're on the border, as long as the Indiana side has the more prominent city. So like in Evansville, most of the ISP stuff is on that side, not on the Kentucky side. So you're probably okay. But where I am, every once in a while you can have trouble because Louisville is so dominant down here that they might think you're out of state depending on your email address. So they shouldn't need to. If they have trouble with it, let us know, because that's something that the Inspire team within the state library and or EBSCO host can help us with. Any other questions about points of view or about any of the 7 reference centers? All right. While you guys think about that, I'm going to bring up my email for people to copy down. And I'm going to copy the TLU request form link and drop that in the chat so that you all can fill out the form. And I will be happy to go back into any of those and do more searches. Okay, ish. I'll have to try that out. Yeah, some of the tools, so the save directly to OneDrive or save directly to Google Drive, they're really cool in practice, but yeah, sometimes those don't work quite as well as just emailing yourself either a PDF or the link. And I know with the new accounts that are being required when you're not in the state to get access to this stuff has thrown a wrench, a new wrench into some of those. So definitely let us know if you or your patrons have trouble with any of that. All right. Are there any other questions? Yeah. I mean, I don't want to speak for the other PDO coordinators, but definitely reach out to the person in your region. They might be able to work with you, or I can attempt it as well. Yeah. Yes, you should be able to print and save. Oops, chat went away. So points of view, and I'll actually kind of use this as a way to, so I open the things up and I should have print, email, and save. It looks like. Small business, print, email, and save. Definitely. Those two are maybe the most article-like. Okay, Biography Research Center, Nelson Mandela. It looks like I could email it, or I could print it, or I could save it. So it looks like those are there in that one as well. And of course, if I went all the way into an article, yep, looks like I've got the same tools. Science Reference Center. Oh no. Interesting. Oh boy, what has happened? Here we go. Science Reference Center. Oh my goodness. I thought I was going to get away without having an issue. Do you have to have an account to save? No, you shouldn't need an account. Well, to save, you might need an account. To print or to email, you should not. Yeah, I don't know what's up, if that's the specific link. Okay, I'm going to close this one out. Close them all out. And reopen one. What were we in? We were in Biography. So yeah, if I wanted to print it, I should just eventually get to a standard print window. If I wanted to save it, however, that might be okay. Where's my save button? Oh, one article will be saved. Maybe it sees me as logged in. Oh no, it's saying do file select, etc. Save as. Yep, save as. So either it thinks I'm signed in, which I don't think I did that yet today, or this basic save, I don't need to be logged in for. I think what it is, oops, took me out of it. Actually, let me do history. I think Here we go. I think it's the folder option. When you're trying to save something to your folder, that's when you would need to log in, because that's tied to your EBSCO, your individual EBSCO account, sort of within the umbrella of the state library account. But if you're in an article individually and you hit save, that's when it's just creating an HTML little file that you could then email or save or print off. And if I was in the PDF itself, then I should just have the, what do I want to save? The whole thing, just certain page numbers, and then save PDF. And then it just downloads it. Now, of course, it didn't give me the opportunity to name the file. So if you had a patron who did that a lot, they would have a whole lot of files with probably very unintelligible names. So you might want to coach them to open that up then and rename it so they know what it is before they kind of get too far down the rabbit hole. Yes, you're welcome, Stephanie. So yeah. All right. So those are the 7 reference centers. Again, all of them except for small business have what I think is a very user-friendly interface, pretty easy to browse them. We saw that science and literature and history had sort of the curriculum tools on the right-hand side. Science even had worksheets and some lesson planning features built in, so that's pretty cool. The only one that doesn't have that great browsable interface is, of course, Small Business Reference Center. But then you're back to a very, very typical EBSCO interface for basic searching, which we have a lot of tutorials and webinars on the State Library's archived webinars page. So if you ever need help with those, you can look there. So don't forget to use that request form if you didn't already fill it out. I'm going to go ahead and drop that in the chat one more time. And if you have any questions, feel free to drop them now. But okay, when you have a chance, could you name change? Yeah, sure. Why it gives 3 different results. Ooh, even worse. I got 8 results. Let's see, 2016, 2016, 2016. Boy, those look. Oh, okay, here we go. For a minor, no consent, a minor consent, an adult. So that's part of the answer, is that these are 3 different forms based on the age of the person. And then these last 3. State court forms, Indiana 304. Different files. Different page counts. Let us see. So it's a questionnaire to fill out. They all were 2016. I mean, I didn't look at every question, but the first part looked very similar. I'd have to download them. That's the only difference. It's one says 10, yeah, 10, 11, and 12. It is possibly, and the difference in page numbers, I know sometimes EBSCO, when they're uploading files like that, there'll be like a last page that's added on that's not really part of the original document. It's just has some copyright information kind of tacked on at the end. So if we go down here, yeah, see this last page is not actually a page. Oh, but that's 13th and it said 12, so it wasn't counting that one. Minor child's name. I wonder, they have not labeled them very well, but I wonder if one of these is for a minor that does not have consent, a minor that does have a consent, and one for an adult. And unfortunately, if that's the case, and I will have to ask our EBSCO rep, but if that's the case, they need to do a better job of labeling or naming these three. In the meantime, you'd almost have to open each one up and kind of carefully read through those first couple of pages and see if it gives you a clue as to which one goes to which of those three outcomes. Yeah, clear names. I'm definitely going to be sending that to our EBSCO rep because I think that might be what happened. I think that's those three different statuses. So legal forms. Okay, so at this point, most of the questions have died off. So Lisa, you can go ahead and stop the recording. I will stick around for a few more minutes in chat.